Hi, I'm David Yang, and we're back with another episode of Alumni Stories. I'm here privileged to interview Dan Margol. Dan was part of the third cohort at Fullstack, and what I'd love to get started with all of these, Dan, is just tell us a little bit about yourself.
So yeah, I mean, I'm in my 30s now. When I started Fullstack, I was actually under 30, just under 30, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life. I was working in accounting. I've got a degree in psychology. And I just was kind of lost. Thought about getting a CPA. But, was kind of bored with accounting.
Okay, so you're a little bit bored with accounting. You have a background in psychology. Now, the question I always love to ask is, how did you come to discover programming? Like, where did it come into your life?
Yeah, so I've got a friend who's been, he's a really good close friend of mine who's been a coder, a software engineer for his entire life, basically before he even went to college. And I was talking to him, and he told me that we were talking about what should I kind of do with my life, and I told him that I missed building stuff. I did Americorps, and I was rebuilding homes that were destroyed by Hurricane Katrina, and I was like, I love the fact that I would build something for the day, and I would have this sense of accomplishment. And he was telling me how he has that with coding. And I was like, all right, I'll check it out. And then once I started checking it out, I was taking classes at UDC for accounting, and I decided to switch my next accounting class into Intro to Programming. And then I went from there and took Comp Sci 1, Comp Sci 2.
Okay, so you're taking these computer science classes. Was there a moment where you felt like you were building something and you felt like this power that you could create stuff?
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty early on, yeah. Even playing around with Code Academy back in the day when it was super buggy, it was still this is awesome. Just getting through, I was I built that functionality, and it was something so simple. It was just basically a text box, and then people be able to write their name, and then you could see it on the screen. It was just something silly. Was oh, that's so cool. It's somebody input something there, and then it comes there, and you're oh wow, it's awesome. So I started putting the pieces in my head together that you could build anything you want, and every day that I could code, I could be building something.
I see. And so you're taking these classes, you're building stuff. When did you have this feeling that I want to make this my career? When did that jump happen?
It was probably pretty early on. In Intro to Programming, the class was going actually pretty slow. University classes can tend to go slow, especially when you only go once or twice a week. And I was also working full time. And I just had this thirst where I was oh, I want to make this jump. I want to just do this full time. And so it was pretty early on that I was I really want to do this. And that's what I think. I think that people will either like it or not pretty early on.
Okay. I'm always so curious because for me it was just something that I fell in love with as a kid, and I always love to hear people who come to it. As a kid you fall in love with computers, you're just playing with it. People come to it later on, and it's just that feeling of, wow, it's a new discovery, a new.
Yeah, I'm kind of jealous of people like you who fell in love with it as a kid. I wish I had recognized that as a kid. I think I would have loved it, even when I was a kid. It's just I never knew.
Had access to it.
Well, I guess I had access to it. My parents had computers and all that, but I never thought about
programming it.
Programming it, yeah. Okay. And I did take a class in high school, but it wasn't anything that was very fun necessarily.
Okay, and then so tell me about I'd love to hear kind of looking back. Tell me about your Fullstack experience. What were some of the challenges? What were some of the fun moments that you had?
Yeah, I think it was definitely probably one of the best experiences that I've had was deciding to go to Fullstack and coming here and.
That's always
Yeah, of course. Okay. When I decided to go to a boot camp, I went full board. I applied to 11 boot camps.
Wow.
And I got into 7, and I decided that Fullstack was the right one for multiple reasons. But and I think I would make that decision 10 out of 10 times. Again.
That's great to hear. I appreciate that.
Especially after being in DC, I've met up with people who have gone to other boot camps, and honestly, I think that they didn't have as great of an experience, to be honest. But at Fullstack, the cohort is a lot of fun. You meet a lot of cool people. I think the people that Fullstack lets in is very unique people and a lot of fun. And that's some of the best memories that I had was actually during the learning phase when we got to pair program. And it was you didn't know who you were pair programming with, but it was also this like kind of weird scenario where you're both learning how to program at the same time, but then you're also trying to get to know each other and program together. And it's like something that would never probably happen also in the workforce either, because you're gonna probably, I mean, at least when I've paired with coworkers, I know them because I've been working with them, right? But like at the boot camp, you're like, oh, I just met you, and then now we have to go solve this task together, and it's fun because it's got a lot of things going on there.
You know, I never thought about that, but you're right. It's like you put it into the situation with this person, and now you give them like this mission to solve together, and you learn a lot more about people in that scenario than you ever do just go at a mixer or saying hello.
Yeah, exactly. It's a great way to learn about people, is the fact that you've got to kind of do this together. It's kind of like, one of those, they're hot right now, the escape the room type thing.
Yeah.
You usually go with friends, but and you already know the person, but imagine doing escape the room with somebody that you don't know, and then you've got to figure out to work together, how to work together to then solve the problem at hand.
I remember you had a reputation in your cohort for being a very good pair programmer, a very good communicator. I'm curious, do you still do that a lot at your work, or do you have any tips for people who are, new to pair programming or, scared of it?
When I first started at Vizuri, we didn't really do so much pair programming, and that was something that I wanted to bring to the table, was to say, hey, we should be doing this more. I think it's industry-wide, I don't know if it's necessarily one of those best practices to enforce pair programming, but I think that it's per the right team and per the right individuals, it can be so powerful, and it makes a lot of sense, because I do it where it's like sometimes we use a tool to pair program with, and I'll call up a coworker and be like, hey, can you just look at this? And while they're looking at it and I'm just running through the code with them and just getting a second set of eyes, they'll say one thing and then I'll be like, oh, I just fixed it in my head. But it was if I didn't have that second set of eyes looking at it and then saying that one thing, it would have taken me so much longer to have fixed that. And I think it also then allows better working relationships to be built. I got a degree in psychology, and the fact that people coming together to solve a problem is how you gain amazing experiences, and it's a learning environment, right?
I see.
And so the fact that you're also learning from your coworkers and how they would interact with the problem, and you can see how they would interact with the problem might be different from how you would interact with the problem, you then accelerate both people's learning.
What tool do you use for pair programming at work? It sounds like you have this
Well, we use Screen Hero, which was bought by Slack, and then now it's
in this amorphous place.
Yeah. So I had an account to Screen Hero a month before it was bought by Slack, and then now it's free, and I just invited my coworkers.
Okay.
But we use Slack too at work.
Okay. So I'm curious, because you went after Fullstack, you moved to DC. That's where home is.
Yeah.
Okay, so you moved home to DC, and then you find work at this Vizuri, which is a consulting firm, and I'm just curious, kind of, how'd you get connected to them? What was the interview process like?
Yeah. So once I hit the ground in DC, and I took a weekend to just kind of get everything set, and then that next week I looked up every single meetup that I would be interested in going to, some that I wasn't even necessarily interested in going to, and I just
what ones you were interested in,
I guess the one that I wasn't interested in going to was the meetup that I actually ended up meeting the contact at Vizuri.
That's so funny.
Which is kind of funny, because it was a meetup about the future of the meetup, and I was like, this is kind of weird,
of the future of meetups, or the future of
that meetup.
What was that meetup's topic?
It was a Node.js meetup in DC, but it was we're going to meet to discuss the future of the meetup.
Oh, they think about shutting it down or something?
No, just how to make it better and proceed and stuff like that. And I was like, one, I'm not so, it'd be cooler if I could
I don't know anything about this.
Yeah, I was like, I know nothing about this. It'd be cooler if I could go to a meetup and maybe learn something, or somebody was presenting something, and then as well as mix and, gain some new contacts. So I decided to go, and then that meetup, I guess the structure of that meetup was that everybody just had to talk to each other, and that was the main, it was kind of like a big mixer. And then we did go around the table and discuss what we think could be good for the meetup in the future. But that was where I met actually a couple people, and it led to a couple of different interviews, which was one of the most successful meetups that
I've ever been to. Yeah,
I've ever been to.
It's so funny. It's opportunities are everywhere, and if you're not open to them, sometimes you can't really target in all the time, right? Sometimes the things will come to your life totally randomly.
Right, exactly.
So okay, so you met this Vizuri. Was it Doug that you met there?
Yeah, I met Doug.
Okay.
Doug Schnelzer, and met him there, and then I just followed up with him and went from there. And the interview process was I had a phone screen with him, and then I was brought in for a couple-hour on-site interview where people came in and out and they talked to me about my background, where I was from. I had some code up on GitHub, so they were able to see some code.
Okay.
Vizuri goes back and forth on, at least I didn't necessarily have to do a whiteboard coding interview, but they asked me on my Fullstack project for me to talk architecturally, like how everything worked that I worked on.
Which project? Was this Job Butler?
This was Job Butler,
Okay.
yeah. Which actually I just got an email saying that I guess I had it on auto renew, where I was still paying for the
domain.
The domain, which I was like, this is great, whatever.
Wait, you own jobbutler.com or
jobbutler.me?
.me.
It's
okay,
like my Job Butler kind of. Was
Okay,
like
that's a
the
good
thought
process
of it. Yeah.
Okay, so that's great. So they're aware of where you came from, the projects you had, and they were asking about your projects and diving into kind of architectural decisions that you had made.
Yeah, exactly. And then how functionality things were working, like talking to from the front end to the back end, like how we did that and everything. And overall, which was a lot of fun. It was a lot. I really liked the interview. Better than doing obviously, I think sometimes coding, whiteboarding interviews can be so specific on like, solve the Fibonacci sequence and like the cleanest way possible or whatever, or stuff like that. And you're like, when would I be doing this in code? Whereas this interview was kind of, I felt more comfortable because it was like, hey, talk about architectural decisions that you've made as a coder.
I see.
And why you've made that, and then why you decided to solve the problem this way.
And as soon as you got to Vizuri, I know this project you've been working on. It sounds really interesting. Can you maybe tell people a little bit about?
Yeah, so once I got to Vizuri, I was put on our in-house startup, which is a financial planning tool for retirement that we're launching soon. And it's been a lot of fun. The first, I guess we were making it more of a web app, and then now we're using Ionic and we're making a mobile app, which is, and it's been a great experience to kind of go from like, I came in before it was an incubated idea. I guess it was after it was an incubated idea, and we were building it out. And it's just been a lot of fun going back and forth and seeing how decisions get made from the business team, being like, hey, we want this feature, or then we want this to look like this, and then you're like, oh.
So you're doing a little bit. So it's web work, mobile work.
We're actually not doing much more web. We're just going to go straight with the mobile.
Straight
app
mobile,
now.
okay.
Yeah, which is kind of a bold move, but I think a right move for retirement. There's not many out there that just start that are only on mobile. There's a lot to retirement.
Yeah.
There's a lot that you've got to ask, and when you come to the mobile, people don't want to be asked that many things.
Yeah, no one wants to interface with it in that way, right?
And so figuring out the best ways to interface with people on a mobile and try to streamline processes for them in the app has been a challenge, but fun, and working with the business team on getting that together. And
I'd love to see that. I think great mobile onboarding like workflows and processes are very interesting to see, right? Because you're right, it's like not a great typing environment. People are often in and out.
Right, exactly. And like people now with the third-party keyboards, people have like different keyboards.
Oh, so it's like hard to even know what.
So it's like hard to kind of know what their experience could be.
And so, a lot of our people that we've talked to, they're out just a few months. You've been out for now almost 2 years now.
Yeah.
Right. So how have you, grown? How do you keep yourself up to date and learning new things? One thing like people tell bootcamp grads is that you still have to keep learning and keep growing. Right. So I'm curious to hear that story. What do you do in that? Yeah.
So I guess one thing was, trying to pick up different tips from other developers on my team. I would see like what they would do, So one thing we weren't doing early on when I first started was we were not doing peer reviews. And me and another...
peer code reviews.
Yeah, peer code reviews. And me and another coworker were like, hey, we should implement this. So we started talking to our team about it, and we just started, we use Bitbucket. So we were just using the pull request feature, and then people had to get, you got to get 2 approvals from 2 other people before you can merge the code back in. But it's actually great because then it's like 2 people have to go in and at least read your code. And it does kind of, I guess in some ways it slows us down a little bit, but it's so much better because like, I take it to like check out people's code, run it, make sure functionality is working as well, like as a user, and then I also like to read through their code, and then you can pick up like really good tips that they're doing, as well as like it's nice when people like comment on my code, being like, hey, like why'd you do this?
You take a little hit in speed, but you gain it in like knowledge sharing and stability.
Exactly. As well as one thing that we did early on was we started following a style guide.
Okay.
And I think following a style guide, we followed John Papa's
style guide.
using Angular, but I think following a style guide is very important for a team, because then architecturally you kind of know where things are from the get-go, as well as like how you would put things, right?
Yeah.
And that is something to do. And then learning-wise, it's just reading blog posts, whether people talk about, hey, like if I want to go learn about this new feature in Angular when it was moving to Angular 1.5, or we were using Ionic. So there's a lot of stuff out there with Ionic that's kind of interesting with the Ionic 1, and they're obviously doing a huge rewrite with Ionic 2, but there's just trying to read blog posts, seeing how other people did it, and then figuring out, hey, maybe we should learn from that to then use for us and make architectural decisions for our app.
I see. Do you have a kind of a horse in the race right now between Angular 2? Are you looking at things like React Native? I mean, this whole world is constantly in flux.
Yeah. I think I don't necessarily have a horse in the race. The tech director, Doug, on our team, he definitely has a horse in the race. He probably is. We're going all in with Angular 2 soon, and we're going to be going with Ionic 2.
And you're going with TypeScript as well, then?
And we want to go TypeScript as well.
I think that's the right choice.
And I think TypeScript for an enterprise level app will definitely help. The optional type safety is very nice, and actually if you use the type safety, it'd be nice. When it comes to React and Angular, I say whatever works best for you. Like if you like using React, like I think when people talk about the performance and the speed of React versus Angular 1 or Angular 2, when it comes down to the user, like users, not even 9 out of 10 times, but not even like, I was going to say like 9.5 out of 10 times. So it was like 99% of the time, regular day users, not like tech users, but like regular day users, which is the majority of your users, they're not going to know.
Yeah.
Like they're not going to know the speed of React versus Angular. And I think you decide on, there's caveats for going with either one. I find it interesting that React kind of puts everything in that same file, whereas Angular is like, a little bit more, everything's got its own file, like my views on this file.
Yeah.
At least what I've seen read some React tutorials and stuff. But
let me ask you, when you were in accounting, were you doing a lot of programming, like VBA stuff, Excel formulas, or that wasn't really?
I was doing a little bit of Excel formulas,
Okay.
but it was mostly just like data entry and I was doing a lot of payroll processing at my last job. So it was mostly, working with ADP and running Excel, and then also I was doing like purchasing and stuff like that.
I see.
So it was a little different of an accounting role, but I was doing some, Excel functions.
And so sorry that was for that tangent, but this app that you are building, it's going to launch in a week or so, you said.
That's the goal. The goal is to launch probably by the end of fall.
End of fall, okay.
Yeah. Before fall starts.
Before fall starts, okay.
Yeah. So the end of summer.
Okay. And where can people find it?
It'll be in the Play and Apple App Stores.
Is there a name for it, or?
Yeah, it's called Plenty.
Plenty. Okay.
Yeah.
Just spell the word.
PLYNTY.
Okay. All right. Very cool.
It's a cool app.
All right. We'll add a link to it in the show notes.
Yeah, for sure.
And then one thing I always like to ask, like, what was your favorite memory of your time at Fullstack?
Oh man, one thing that I guess we don't have was, I guess one of the biggest bonding experiences we had was staying late, and we would, we would decide around like 6 or 7, like, hey, we're kind of done for the day, but you know what, let's go get some dinner around the corner, and then we would stay late. Then we would come back and we would code a little bit. I know there's no ping pong table here anymore, but then we would play some ping pong, then code a little bit and play some ping pong. And I think those late nights where you're just trying to, one, understand what we were doing, and because it's a lot of information at once, and just trying to get that all soaked up was just fun. And then just doing that with friends, I think, was a great experience.
Yeah, that's
I know
really
there are
cool.
times where we would try to get like 3 or 4 people around a screen at like 10 o'clock at night trying to like fix one thing, and it was like, one, this is probably too many people pairing at this point, but like it was fun, you know. We were young, I guess, and didn't.
We were young then.
Yeah, we were young then.
All right, very cool, Daniel. Do you have any kind of online presence, a Twitter handle, blog?
Yeah, I mean, I have danielmargol.com where
Okay.
I blog a little bit. I only have a couple blogs up there. I do have a blog about my full stack experience.
On danielmargol.com.
Yeah, and then another blog which I've talked about, which was GeoJSON data and Google Maps.
Okay.
By basically making like Core Plus maps, which are kind of like heat maps, but then you draw lines like around. Let's say you wanted to draw lines around each state, like for the election coming up. If you wanted to draw lines around each state on a Google Map canvas, and then put a shade of color over each state, whether it was a blue state or red state.
I see.
Like that's the blog post that I talked about doing.
Okay, so that's where you're incorporating JSON data and everything.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which was when I wrote that, and I did that like a year and a half ago, I guess. And then I finally got around to doing a blog post about it. I actually had a reporter who like reached out to me through, I don't know how he reached out to me, that he was like confused by this. And then I wrote the blog post, and then I wrote a Stack Overflow
Okay, very cool.
thing about it. Yeah.
All right. Well, Daniel, it's so great to see you and
Yeah.
catch up and hear about your success the last few years. And thank you for coming in for the alumni
No
story.
problem. Thanks for having me.
All right. Great seeing you.